This is TWiT.
Always have a connection and a soft spot for Google.
Well, I think that's the idea, right? That these people, this Google diaspora, you know?
Yeah. It's fun to watch, like a twig or two ago. You know, I listen while running, to This Week in Google, and it's really fun to hear how you guys interpret various things and the criminology of trying to reverse engineer why this person's doing that or something is really fun. And it's definitely the case. Like this interview with Larry Page in the Financial Times.
Right.
It's neat to have that perspective of like maybe a little bit better guess about what Larry was thinking about.
Yeah, that was actually a great interview, and I think it is probably timed around Sundar Pichai's promotion and the idea that Larry will have fewer direct reports and be able to think more about the high-level stuff. Freeing himself up to think big is how the Financial Times.
My favorite part of this was saying Google. You can't imagine a bigger mission statement than Google's. Yet he wants a bigger mission.
Right. The original mission was what, to organize all the world's information and make it accessible, universally accessible and useful. That's pretty big.
It's a function of cash flow. I actually, I love Google. Obviously, I do the show, and I think the intentions are good. But I think, it's like Google has a great business with lots of money in the bank, right? So, which gives them the opportunity to look at those big challenges. And I'm so glad that they are, right?
Yes.
But there are very few companies I think that can make that leap. To make those kinds of investments.
And that's kind of exactly what Larry said when the Times FT asked him what the new mission statement would be. He said, well, we're still trying to work that out. We have $62 billion in cash. We're in a bit of uncharted territory. We're trying to figure it out. How do we use all these resources and have a more positive impact on the world? And boy, that'd be a fun company to be at, I think, Matt.
Yeah, it's filed under good problems to have.
Yeah.
Right?
If you trust Google. Now, I have to say, I'm reading a book, which is a great book called Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Which is a fun book, yeah.
Have you read it?
You read that.
I'm reading it right now. I'm kind of like, I don't know the end of it, so I can't spoil it for you. But it's a novel about a company, actually a consortium of the biggest data companies in the world who just basically say, forget the NSA, we're going to collect everything about everybody and store it. And it's one of those, it's like the worst paranoid fantasy. So if you're a privacy buff or privacy advocate, this is what you fear.
Yeah, but as opposed to other dystopian novels of the current time, this one had a wry touch and it was fun. And,
I love it.
And that attitude drives me nuts, but I enjoyed the book a lot.
And it is, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the evil person in the book is kind of a Bill Gates type working in a Google type company would be my play on it. But it does. These are the fears I think some people have. Yes, that Google might have an overarching ambition that goes beyond what we're comfortable with.
Then I read another one recently, which was the opposite. Well, I can't remember the title right now, in which the opposite happens, that everything gets controlled, and we don't get the freedom to share. And dystopia can cut both. Any dystopia has its alternate number.
Right, and there's always the extreme. I'm not going to ask Matt this because this would put him on the spot, and obviously you trust Google because you work there, and you more than many are inside Google and understand kind of a little more what the motivations are, right?
It's interesting too because, like, I think a lot of people view Google as a monolith, and I tend to view it more like almost like separate silos. There's search, there's Chrome, there's Android, there's social or Google Plus, there's YouTube, and each silo or department, whatever you want to call it, within the company is good at certain things and not as good at other things. And so search is fantastic at artificial intelligence, machine learning, as it relates to search at least, and handling things really, really fast. Whereas 2 or 3 generations ago, when you went to go order your Nexus 4, maybe the store couldn't handle the load or something like that. But then those other parts of Google are good at are good at other things. And so I think, at least I can only speak for core search, but one of the things that core search has always believed in is trying to have a level playing field and you know, things like takeout, so that if you don't like Google, you can leave, which forces us to compete honestly. And so I totally understand why some people are like, okay, I'm worried about ambition or disruption, but as long as a company has to earn your loyalty,
right,
and there's not lock-in, that's to me the big promise that makes it such that you don't have to work at Google for 14 years to know that it's trustworthy, because you can go anywhere else.
You know, because I know you and I trust you, I do trust Google, but I have to say, when your mission goes from, we just want to be great search and organize the world's information, something that everybody can kind of get behind, to, well, now we've got a lot of money, so let's get more ambitious. It starts to raise a little bit of a red flag.
No, I think it's the opposite. I read it the opposite, Leo. I thought that it was saying now we have a responsibility to give back and to use science and engineering to solve problems and do neat things and help.
Yeah, but who decides? I mean, who decides when government does it? I don't know either. But who decides what is altruistic and for a societal benefit? The guy with the money. The guy's writing the check.
Yeah, but that's
one thing that I do love about Larry is he wants to make a big difference. You know, maybe not just one dent in the universe, but multiple dents in the universe. And his mode of thinking, you know, from the outside, from what I can tell, seems to be, okay, well, what's causing the biggest suffering? What do people die of? You know, what is causing the most harm? And he did a pretty good job of enunciating that in his Financial Times interview, and he's done those interviews with Ted. And if those are the kinds of motives, then, you know, you can understand, okay, self-driving cars, you know, a lot of people die because of car accidents, you know, or Calico trying to tackle disease, or, you know, these new nanoparticles that could go around and spot diseases much, much earlier. And it just seems like there's so many moonshots or 10 times improvements that everybody would be like, yes, healthier people. And then you can certainly, you know, argue over the relative, you know, priorities of some stuff, but there's still a lot of not low-hanging fruit, but seemingly mission impossible things that have yet to really be tackled the way that they could be tackled.
Yeah.
I would hope that he has good advisors and is doing this. Well, I'll give you an example of something that worried me a little bit in the FT article. He says, given the chance to give up work, 9 out of 10 people, quote, wouldn't want to be doing what they're doing today. And that's, yes, but then it's 9 out of 10 people who are out of work. He predicts radical deflation. I asked. Uh-oh, frozen Jeff.
And dream.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm glad that's not just me.
No, it's Jeff.
Phew.
You asked Mark Andreessen what?
Larry also talked about radical deflation.
Yeah.
That prices will come down because of greater efficiency. Well, that could bring some really disruptive forces into society and may not be all good. But he saw it as a positive, saying that things will get cheaper. People will have more time. Now, that this people will have more time trope has been predicted often. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I do agree that, as you've heard me say on the show, technology leads to efficiency over growth. And I think that's part of what he's saying.
Well, and Jeff, you had a really good piece from 2011 called The Jobless Future, I think, that basically talks about how technology leads to all kinds of improvements, but not automatically to more jobs.
Exactly.
And, you know, Eric Schmidt gets kind of this reputation for saying things that are true, but maybe not as polite or something like that. And, you know, you've got government saying we're going to create as many jobs as possible. And I think a lot of technologists are like, is the objective to create jobs, or is the objective to do, you know, the best possible thing that you can do? And yes, there's absolutely some tension inherent there. And I think, Leo, you're right to put your thumb on it and say, wait a second, what if you're a telephone operator or a truck driver, and suddenly switching is automatic, or in 50 years or whatever, you know, computers can drive cars more effectively.
He also says, he defends, yeah, and he says you can't wish these things away because they're going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to have some very amazing capabilities in the economy. When we have computers that could do more and more jobs, it's going to change how we think about work. There's no way around it. You can't wish it away. And those are the right words. And then I would hope that he would start to think about, well, what happens? He says, I mean, I don't think the answer is, oh, this is fine because everything's going to get so cheap that you don't need a job. Is not an answer. that I think a lot of people want to hear.
And I personally agree with you. I think, look, saying that there's disruption coming in the future, and that is a two-edged sword, and disruption helps in a lot of ways, and disruption hurts a lot of incumbents and hurts a lot of industries, and can hurt people if they don't prepare for it. And then maybe the next part of that could be, and how do we all talk about or begin the conversation of how to prepare for that together?
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that's you have my friends in publishing, especially German publishing, who go after Google as if that was our money, you took it away from us, you owe us something. I couldn't disagree with that more. But I would agree that having had a disruptive impact on, for example, news and the media industry, I think Google has some more, if not moral, than ethical responsibility and opportunity to help rethink the future. And so you have Larry Page having tremendous gifts of intellect, gifts of his fields of science, and now gifts of cash. And I'm not saying he should go give it to Axel Springer or that he should give it to, I don't know, CUNY. It's not like a Bill Gates thing. But I would argue that what we need in these industries is the best of Silicon Valley's innovation and investment to rethink what they ought to be, what they can be. Not the current players, not the legacy players. There's no right that they should continue in their old power. But for Google to tackle big questions like how do we solve disease, how do we stop people from dying in cars, how do we have a more informed society, things like that, I think is now a kind of give back. And you can do it the Bill Gates way, where you say, I got a big bucket load of money and I'm going to put my smarts to using it that way. Or you can do it when I think Larry's much younger is doing it and say, well, while I'm still in this company, while I have this incredible powerhouse, how can we harness that?
But that's the difference that scares me a little bit. So, and now I'm going to call on you, the historian, Jeff, because there have been plutocrats before. There were the robber barons. There have been very, very wealthy men before. And I think Bill Gates is one model where you make a pile of money, you put it in the bank, and then you retire and you give it to charity. And what he's doing is not to build a business around that, but just giving it all away. What Larry's proposing is a little more scary to me, and I wonder if there's a precedent for this, where you have somebody like Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, these very extraordinary, and I guess, I don't know about Apple, if there's a guy at Apple like that, I guess not, but these extraordinary wealthy guys who, instead of saying, I'm just going to make this money, put it in the bank, and then when I retire, give it away, who say, I'm going to rebuild society.
Easy. Henry Ford, Thomas Edison.
And what happened?
Thomas Edison invented a whole bunch of cool stuff.
And got very wealthy. And then what did he do with the money? Did he say, now I'm going to change the world and I'm going to remake the world in my own vision?
He kept doing what he did to improve the world.
He kept inventing.
Yes.
Now Henry Ford was more of the megalomaniac style, where I'm going to reinvent the world.
Sort of new utopia in Brazil. Didn't work out so great.
Didn't work so well, did it? No. So that's what worries me, is that, look, Larry's obviously brilliant, and I think Google's fantastic, but I worry that somebody now suddenly has a lot of power, influence, and money. And when you're giving money to charity, it's a little different because you're working within a system. Now it's almost as if he wants to create his own system, and that. But that's I still got to disagree. That's Bill Gates saying, "Okay, I'm done, and now I'll take my cash lump." And don't forget, Bill Gates is using his intelligence and trying to change the world in important ways with his money. Right. But the charitable system in this country isn't all that great. It's better. It's more developed and better than it is in other countries. But it has its own problems of legacy and stick in the mud and bureaucracy and entrenched interests and all kinds of things. Charities aren't all wonderful. Well, and somebody's pointing out that, of course, the other thing Henry Ford did is he started the Ford Foundation, which to this day is really a valuable asset in the world. But
I guess the only thing I'd add is that Google has a couple advantages in that you've got a critical mass of smart people, and they have tried to have a culture of don't be evil. And you can argue over individual incidents and whether, this specific thing is evil or that specific thing is evil. But Google as a whole, whenever I look at the DNA, the people try to do the right things. And so if you've got Larry marching off in one direction and you've got the rest of the company saying, no, we disagree, and they drag their heels and they create friction, that in my opinion helps to move things toward a consensus of maybe a middle ground, which works pretty well. And then having that critical mass of smart people lets you say, oh, now I can do voice recognition better. Now I can do image recognition better, and I can unlock all kinds of good applications to improve the world that way. Whereas if you just took the money, and Larry said, so it's a tough call, you know. It's like Gina says, it's a good problem to have, I guess.
It's like when you get root on a Unix system for the first time. I mean, you know, the thing you see with great power comes great responsibility. Google has root, I think, you know, and I think that the fear is like, what are they going to do? You know, are they going to be responsible? And I like the idea that there's checks and balances and that there's, critical mass of smart people. I just, the evil thing is like, technology, the thing that I've understood, and I'm very pro technology, but the thing that I'm reminded of constantly is like technology itself isn't good or evil, right? Like it just is. And it's what you do with it. And like, there's a lot of nuance around that. And of course I like that Google aspires to don't be evil, but, I think it really comes down to just folks feeling, there's this weird fear of the powerful nerd thing, that I read your email T-shirt, and I think society or culture is going to outgrow that to some degree, especially when these legacy institutions sort of die off and we move forward. But I think some of the distrust is just kind of like, there's a lot of opportunities here for one company to change the world, and let's hope it's in the best ways.
Also from this Financial Times article, Page relates a frequent debate he said he had with Steve Jobs, who died 3 years ago. Page said, he would always tell me, "You're doing too much stuff," to Google. And Page would say, I'd be like, "You're not doing enough stuff." The argument he made to Jobs, it's unsatisfying to have all these people, and we have all these billions we should be investing to make people's lives better. If we just do the same things we did before and don't do something new, it seems like a crime to me.
I think that's important. There's another model here, Leo, which is Bell Labs. Bell Labs did fund a good deal of pure research that led to some. Astronomy had nothing to do with Bell Labs, but they had astronomers there. They had amazing scientists there. Google has phenomenal scientists and engineers there, and to unleash their problem-solving power on the problems they find and to support them while doing that. Some of those problems will solve the problems that Google has, like cheaper power. Cheaper power is good for everybody, and it's darn good for Google. The transistor was good for everybody, and it was good for AT&T. The network was good for everybody, and AT&T didn't realize how good it could have been for them. But we don't have a Bell Labs now, and another way to look at it is, what if Google started beyond Project X a pure research arm the size of Bell Labs? That'd be something.
Still a lot of trust. Yeah, Larry Page is not an elected official. Not necessarily that makes it more trustworthy, but
well, if Matt Cutts doesn't go back to Google, all bets are off.
I sense a distrust of the pace of politics and the pace of government in all of Silicon Valley. Hey, no, why are you taking so long? We're just going to go and launch it and do it. Elon Musk, same thing. And
are they wrong?
Yes. There's a reason, I believe there's a reason why government moves so slowly and deliberately.
As slow as ours right now?
Yeah. I think that it's better to move slowly than it is to move too quickly.
In theory, yes, but now we're at complete
Well, I think it's also better to reach consensus. And I think the problem you have when you have these very powerful plutocrats is they don't need to reach consensus. This is not an indictment of Google or Larry Page. It's just a general fear that you've got a lot of power, and just saying don't be evil, it's a good start, but it really has to be in your DNA. And what is evil and what isn't evil, and ultimately, as a publicly held company, your fiduciary responsibility is to your stakeholders.